This is the Snowflake Double Knit Baby Bonnet. It's lots of fun and a great little double knitting project. This is the striped I-cord that we've shown in an earlier clip, and this is the front edge. This is where it all begins. You start your project with an I-cord, then we do a tubular cast on from one I-cord to the next, and then the project is worked flat until you get to the crown of the hat. So this is a brand new born size, and there are 3 sizes of the hat in the pattern. Now we're going to do the tubular cast on for the Domino Baby Bonnet and many other uses. In the bonnet it's done with one colour, and to be honest with you, one colour's a little bit fiddly. It's not so much fiddly, it's hard to see what's going on. So I'm reaching over my front yarn and knitting up a piece of the back yarn. I'm reaching over the back yarn and purling up a piece of the front yarn. I'm using each yarn as its own knitting needle. And I'm making a series of knit and purl stitches on my needle. But it's really hard to see what's going on with one colour, and so I would suggest you practice initially with 2 colours. So I'm going to pretend this is a continuous piece of yarn, and I'm going to make my first twist. The needle goes down to the 6 o'clock position and then to the 9 o'clock. And that's going to be a purple knit. Now I'm going to reach over the purple and purl up the white. Actually got that the wrong way around the needle there, but we'll get into the hang of it in just a second. Reach over the front yarn and knit up the back yarn. Reach over the back yarn and purl up the front yarn. If you happen to rotate the yarn the wrong way around the needle, as I did with that first stitch, you can just remount the stitch when you work it later. But you can see it's a lot easier to read what's going on when you've got 2 colours. I filmed a lot more about this on my Venus 2 DVD. So I'm reaching over the back colour and purling up the front one. And each time I make a stitch, I've got to let the yarn that's being the stitch go all the way around the needle and put some tension on the underneath yarn. I must also keep control of these stitches and make sure they always settle at the 6 o'clock position. If we thought of the knitting needle as a clock face, they can easily creep around the needle and spiral around. This must also always be done onto a rigid or a solid needle, not onto the flexible bit. As soon as it gets onto the flexible bit of a circular needle, the stitches will distort and all become quite wobbly and unusable. Here's the tubular cast on just done in one colour, and you can see that the knit came first on the needle, then the purl, then the knit, then the purl, and I finished with a purl, which of course is very loose and wobbly at the end. Also, always do this edge on a smaller needle than you plan to use for the rest of the project, because it does have a tendency to flare. So I'm just putting a twist around there to make sure it doesn't escape on me. And now I'm going to start to integrate the previously knitted I-cords. So I'm going to slip it on to this needle, and it won't hurt if I carry on my smaller needle for the next row, but the main thing is that I don't let that purl get away from me. And I do want to link the new colour to the I-cord yarn. I want to make sure that when I work that blue, I'm going to turn it round. When I work that blue yarn into the I-cord, even if this was the same colour, I get a good and positive link here between my cast on edge and my I-cord. So now I'm ready for my first row. And I'm going to just continue using my I-cord yarn just for this row. After this, it'll all be the one continuous piece of main yarn. I'm just using the contrast colours for demonstration purposes. And on this row, I'm making sure I pick up my yarn attached to the ball, and I'm going to just knit the knits. These ones of course used to be the pearls before we turned around. So I'm going to knit the knits and slip the pearls. And the slip, of course, is a purlwise slip because we're just moving them for our own convenience. If someone just says slip, it's usually purlwise, unless it's part of a decrease. So across this row, I'm slipping the far layer stitches, knitting the near layer stitches, and I'm still on my smaller needle at this point. Slip with yarn in front, knit, slip with yarn in front. Don't forget, right at the end, it's easy to give up too soon. Now I need to find my second I-cord. Here's my next I-cord, and the I-cord goes on with the wrong side facing the pearl side, which will disappear. And I'm going to turn it round, and I'm going to make sure the I-cord is linked to my working yarn. And now I'm ready for the next row. So I'm going to do my I-cord, which is just knit 4. And now effectively I'm finished with my I-cord yarn, unless I wanted to maintain separate colours up the side, but I will cut these yarns off and darn them in. And now I'm working my next row on the front edge of my bonnet, and again I'm knitting the knits and slipping the pearls, and this will form a beautifully rounded tubular edge to the bonnet. No hard edges in this bonnet. Then this will lead into 2-colour double knitting and into the pattern of the hat. And before I get to the I-cord, I must keep my yarn in front, slip my I-cord stitches onto the needle, turn the work, and now I'm going to continue in my main working yarn, and I can work my I-cord. I no longer need to work with the actual attached I-cord yarn.